I am strategically waiting for a random number of seconds until YouTube picks up the live stream. This is live stream number 41, and I would like to welcome you to the program today. Got a lot of exciting things to discuss, and let me just make sure I've got this pulled up on YouTube. Here it is. I have, holy cow, holy cow, is this Philip Jackson in the live stream? Son of a gun. I believe it is. I do see a comment at 7:03 a.m. from Philippe Jackson, my trusty podcast co-host and partner and friend and partner in life and in crime. All right. Well, if you have any other questions or yeah, you're there. What's up, brother? What is up? Sweetness. So I have got the live stream pulled up, and you can drop any questions or comments in the chat, and I will respond to them in real time. Not unlike how I just responded to Philip in real time. Yeah, me and Philip really are more of life partners than anything else. I mean, it's 2019, and there's no reason why two married Christian men cannot also be life partners simultaneously. So that is all that I will say on that topic. Okay. Now, let me see if I can jump into this content here. Getting distracted by finally getting some comments in the live stream, which is very exciting for me. Okay, jumping into it. This is on the topic of this is along the same vein of this thing I've been ranting and raving about for about a week now. Things related to working remotely, but not really more than just working remotely, working asynchronously, minimizing distractions, being able to focus, being able to get in the zone as a developer. And I'm getting replies to some of these pieces of content. By the way, Phil, if you're still listening, one of the things I keep noticing is in my audio, which has gotten a lot better, but when I say peas, they pop, and it's kind of driving me crazy when I listen back to the audio. And I don't know if that's a mic technique thing. I just have to pronounce my P's not as strongly, but I need some help in that department. Okay. Anywho, so jumping back in. So I'm getting some replies to some of these things, and I am responding to the replies in separate replies, which are related. I'm not saying the same thing over and over. These are related things, which I think are important. These are important replies to some of these things, and I want to respond to them. So this is I'm going to put my glasses on. I don't give a darn how it looks. I want to be able to see my screen better. There we go. Okay, this is from Mark on LinkedIn. I see notifications of these kinds as part of an ability to adapt, prioritize, focus appropriately, and manage moving circumstances, especially in an in-house environment where you're both development and support for issues. So this is an important context. Yes, they may make you lose focus for a short time, but it's your ability to get back on track that is needed in a lot of circumstances. So this is a great point, and I'm going to disagree with it, but I'm glad it's here because it's definitely something people feel. So yes, distractions may make you lose focus, but it's your ability to get back on track that's needed. So in other words, this is almost sort of putting the burden on the individual to say, hey, you need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You need to be able to be distracted X times a day. Let's give an extreme example. You need to be able to be distracted 20 times a day and also be able to quickly get back into a focused state to get work done. I don't believe that's possible. Of course, it's possible to an extent, and we all vary as human beings in our capabilities and skills. But 80-90% of developers, it's physically not possible. And this is why I keep referring back to these studies that show that when you get into a focused state and you get pulled out of it, there's a ramp time, there's a ramp time back up to get back into a focused state. And those are facts of the human brain. So I get what's being said here, and I understand this can be a real expectation that your bosses may have. But I think it's something we have to push back on because it's physically not possible. And all it does is lead to lower quality work product. Now, of course, there has to be a balance between communicating with your team. I've touched on that and talked about how I think we need boundaries for that. Now, what I really want to get to is this next sentence. In-house wise, you can't say no to person X from department Y if they are having a problem you can fix or explain in a few minutes that stops them from doing their job. So I totally disagree. You can say no. You can say no to whatever you want. Now, of course, there will be consequences to that. And I'm not telling everybody to go out there and say no to everybody that you work with. That could lead to negative consequences. And I get it. I get what you're saying here that, like, listen, I have people depending on me. I can't just ignore them. I can't just put my headphones on and ignore them. And it is true. We have to communicate with people on our teams, but that doesn't mean that we can't create boundaries. For example, I was thinking this is kind of an extreme example. This is sort of a bad example, but if you're a surgeon, sure, your customer, who is the patient's family, would love to be able to come in and get a status update on how things are going. But they're not allowed to do that because doing that, while it may make them feel better, will actually hurt the end result, the end product, which is the quality of the surgery. I know that's an extreme example, probably not the greatest example. I'm trying to think of better examples on the fly, but they're not coming to mind. But there are a number of ways in which it might help somebody to do X, Y, and Z. It might help an employee to be able to sit next to you all day long and learn from everything you're doing. But there's going to be boundaries on what you can do. You want to help them, but you want to put boundaries around the way you interface with other team members in such a way that you can be helpful to them while still getting your work done, which is what you're paid to do. So the point here is just, you can say no, you can push back. It might be awkward. And if you haven't set that expectation for the past X number of years, it's going to be really hard to change that expectation. To be honest, this is a much easier expectation to set if you set it from the get-go, whether that's your first day on the job, your first day with a new client. People are so much better at dealing with expectations that are set up front versus if they're used to being able to interrupt you every 2 minutes and then that changes, everybody's going to be upset. Now, I still think it's the right thing to do and it'll take time to get there, but it will be a lot harder to do. So that was the main thing I wanted to say there. I'm happy to quite often spare a few minutes, fix them. You need them sometimes, you clear. Okay. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me go back real quick to the chat. Plosives. Yeah, exactly. All right. I will get some help from Philip later on my mic technique. Okay. Next up, shout out to, no, I didn't want to watch the video because watching the video can break my live stream. All I wanted to do was to click, don't play. I really need to get a better computer. What I wanted to pull up was his, channel. There we go. Much better. All right. Wanted to pull up YouTube channel from Derek Sivers. And so this is really cool. I saw this drop yesterday. Actually, I should have pulled up his tweet. Let me see if I can find that actually. Derek Sivers, Twitter. There we go. And let me see if I can find this. Okay. There we go. So let's start this topic from here. Okay. So Derek Sivers is one of my favorite people on the internet, on so many levels. As an entrepreneur, as a human being, I love his stuff. I've binge read a bunch of his blog posts. I've caught him on a number of podcasts. And he recently started a podcast, which I think is so cool. And one of the things about Derek that makes him unique, he made his money with CD Baby. I want to say 10 years ago, and then he's has since then lives a, I don't know what's the right word for it, not as retired, but essentially like economically retired in that sense. He writes a lot. He emails a lot of people. Like I remember at one point he literally would spend 6 to 8 hours a day replying to emails. Really, really awesome, interesting guy. Has done a bunch of traveling. I think he lived in New Zealand for a long time, moved to, I want to say, England, UK recently, and just kind of does his own thing. I just love his approach to everything. And so I was really excited when I saw the podcast land because he's unique in the sense that he doesn't follow all the trends of putting out stuff on, his big thing is blogs, his blog, and his email. And he's like, hey, I like to write, so I'm going to write here, and he'll tweet out links and stuff from time to time, but he's not like a Twitter power user. And he doesn't follow all the trends of podcasts are popular. But he finally did a podcast, which I love. And basically what he does, which I think is brilliant, is he takes his blog posts and he reads them. And he has an incredible voice. He has like a hardcore radio voice, which is really cool too. And he just reads them. And they're short and sweet little episodes, a couple minutes each. And then he also has them on YouTube where it's essentially the same content. They're on YouTube. And so I was, as a big Derek Sivers fan, I was excited to see this because I like podcasts. I'm like, awesome. I can subscribe to him in my podcast feed and get these, because as much as I love his blog, and I have seriously binge read his blog on a number of occasions, I much more easily consume stuff through podcast than through reading long form. So that was really cool to see. And then the other comment I wanted to make here is, I think I talked recently about the idea of where's the best place to build your audience. And a lot of people say, email is really the best place to build your audience, get people to sign up with an email so that you can email them your newsletters, your content, whatever, right? And that's always contrasted with social media, where you don't really own your social media. People say you don't really own your social media following because they can flip a switch and cause your organic reach to go down, things like that. So they say with email, you fully own that relationship. Because nobody can flip a switch and cause your emails to stop being received or to change the order where your emails are received. Now that's not entirely true because of things like spam filters and Google Gmail's, tab deals and things like that. But it's an interesting thing because I've seen the power of email firsthand, built an email product and that kind of thing. And it's definitely true that email is surprisingly powerful even in this day and age. And yet at the same time, I don't know if I agree with that idea that, email is sort of the ultimate place to sort of own your relationship with your audience. Because first of all, I saw this on Twitter. I might have also seen it in an email, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But when I'm in my email, I'm trying to get work done. I don't have time. Even stuff that I really like. And he's one of the only people who I subscribe to his newsletter because I actually want to read it. I'm just a huge fan of his. And even his stuff, I'm just I don't have the bandwidth when I'm in my email to read stuff. And so I'm so much happier now that it's in my podcast, because when I'm listening to my podcast is really where I'm in a zone to consume content. in a cool way. So it was just it was interesting as for somebody that was so focused on email and blog, and I'm sure that works incredibly well for him, and he gets a lot of traction there. It's interesting to see that, like, more him doing more stuff on YouTube and on podcasts and things like that. And so I'm just always thinking about where the best place is to kind of grow an audience and things like that. And so anyway, those are my thoughts. Little scattered, but that is what I got for you. All right, next up. These LinkedIn links take a long time to load. Take a long time. I need to get I think I might get a Mac Mini. I need to get something. This setup is not optimal. Need some more processing power. Now I'm circling back to this thread. On the topic of work, interruptions, work life, that kind of thing. And I'm replying to another comment here. This one from Alan. And he says, while in principle, I don't disagree, this is not the reality for agencies and the kind of environment they provide. Let's not even consider the impact of the open office space and how that factors in for interruptions. And so my response to that is I agree. I agree that this is not the reality on the ground. Like I have a very, I guess you could say, idealistic approach to this in a certain sense, and I'm not in the day-to-day working in a dev agency. So from that perspective, it's a little bit of a theoretical opinion. At the same time, the reason I talk about this stuff is because I really want to see that changed. And I actually put this stuff out not so much because I want to like argue with developers, although that's what ends up happening. It's because I want the business people who are sort of in charge of these types of decisions to kind of see this stuff and hopefully change their workflows. And I do think that the agencies that are performing really well are adopting these practices because it's just fundamentals. I mean, if a developer can be twice as productive by having half as many interruptions, or better yet, 3 times as productive by having half as many interruptions, that's gonna, at the end of the day, that is going to, when you aggregate that up across a whole team, that is going to make that team more profitable, make them grow faster, make the team more satisfied, and it's going to help them with recruiting. And so I believe that this is I believe this is the reality for some teams, obviously not all, and probably a small minority of the most successful teams, I think, have this as a reality or are doing it as best as humanly possible and are trying to get better at it. Teams that really care about developer productivity and satisfaction are gonna win. Sometimes there's a standard of like, if your headphones are in, don't if somebody's headphones are in, don't interrupt them in an office setting. And that's something I've seen a number of teams kind of adopt that as a loose policy, and I think that's a smart thing to do. Obviously that's a little trickier to do in a remote environment, but I think there's tons of ways in which these types of things are being implemented, and the future is unevenly distributed. So I really think that the agencies that do get to this first are going to win, and are going to outperform the others. So anyway, so that is my reply to that. Okay, so this next topic is, I'm going to pull up my little quote generator. I need to change this. me change this color. You know what? What the heck? No, I'm not going to do that right now. All right. This is on the topic of happiness. If there is someone that you're jealous of, force yourself to follow them and struggle with that feeling and get past it. So one of the things that I've realized that I am not proud of, but I am getting more comfortable with admitting to myself is that I get jealous of people. There's a saying that, you want your friends to do well, but not better than you kind of thing. And whether it's friends, whether it's people on the internet, I realize that I do have that feeling. And I've literally, like, this is embarrassing to admit, but there's literally been times where, I see someone posting and then it makes me like jealous, and then like I'll like mute them because I'm like, nah, I don't want to see that, and I'm not that, like, saying that out loud is like, God, man, you're like a really bad person. And I guess I'm trying to get comfortable with admitting that and working through it. And this is part of the process of working through it. I've realized is that I've been trying to purposefully, follow those people. Now it's one thing if you don't, jealous, if there's somebody that's, is kind of a little toxic in the way they communicate or whatnot, like, yeah, like I'm all for like mute those people, get the negativity out of there. But if there really is not negativity, but you realize you're just kind of jealous of them, and when you see them getting a win, it makes you feel like, oh, well, I wish I had that win. One of the things I'm starting to do is I'm like, again, instead of hitting that mute button, I'm like, no, I'm gonna look at that tweet and I'm gonna let those feelings come up, and I'm gonna just deal with them. Just let those feelings come up and feel that feeling of whatever it is, and just keep feeling it, keep following them and just keep working through that. And so, that's really it. That's really all I wanted to say about that. It's kind of a little bit of a half-baked idea on the topic of dealing with jealousy. But yeah, hopefully that helps. All right, next up. This is a really cool tweet I saw from Andrew Wilkinson. Do you want to get on somebody's radar? I do love a good cold email, but it's an all or nothing approach. You're betting that they have the time, are in a good mood, and bother responding. The slow burn approach, just frequently post insightful replies to their tweets for months. And then next tweet, they may not directly contact you, but when you contact them about something, they'll have a positive impression of you. Hopefully, if your replies were good. This has worked on me and for me many times. And what's interesting about this is that I've seen this work on, same deal as what he said. I've seen this work on me and for me. And it's something I'm doing really proactively now. Not as a, like growth hack, so to speak, of like, oh, I'm going to just reply to them so that I can, get a link from them or whatever, but more so because I'm genuinely trying to engage more on Twitter with stuff that I'm interested in, that I'm learning from, people that I'm really genuinely learning from. And so it's a combination of, I do want to connect with people that I think are interesting. I do want to get on their radar. But I also just genuinely want to engage with what they're saying and learn from it. And so, so I've really seen this work on me. It's funny. Like, I think of people who have just replied to things, consistently over time. And the key here is insightful replies, right? So like, if somebody sends you that reply where they're, you post something and they're like, oh, I can provide that service for you. Click here to schedule a meeting. And that's the very first thing you've ever heard from them. It'll turn you off a little bit. It's too it's too much of like a cold sales approach. But yeah, I've had people who have just over time, over a matter of months, weeks, post insightful replies to things, and it almost guilts you into following them, because the first couple of times you're like, okay, cool, like thanks for the reply, but like I don't just automatically follow everybody that replies to me, you know, like I want to follow people who like you know, again, I have something that I want to learn from them. But it really does. It kind of almost guilts you. Like after that, like 10th reply, you're like, man, I should follow this person back. Like they're taking the time to write insightful stuff to me. And so, yeah, so this is a great technique, to really just engage with people in a meaningful way, which I think is always the best usage of social media, is to engage in a meaningful way. All right. Let me see here. Got a reply here from Philip. That stopped. That's good stuff. Thank you, sir. I don't know if you mean the P's stopped. But yeah, thanks, bro. Thanks, bro. Dude, we have an exciting podcast on Mage Talk lined up for tomorrow. You are not going to want to miss it. You are not going to want to miss it. That's for darn sure. Okay. Oh, this is actually funny. This is a little awkward because this is a topic I wanted to talk about, and I wasn't going to mention anyone specifically because I don't want my content team to tag anyone on this topic. But anyways, this may be a little awkward. We'll see. So, all right. So I saw this tweet yesterday. I wrote a post about why subscription revenue is the future of podcast monetization. And I took a quick look at the article, but this is something I've been thinking for a while. I think I've talked about this. I think I've done some content on this. I can't remember offhand, but, you know, I really like, I think I talked about the Tim Ferriss podcast, and when he decided to go from ad supported to memberships supported. I thought that was brilliant, thought it was amazing. And then he ended up going back for a number of reasons, which kind of surprised me. But there's a number of great points in here for why, subscription revenue, in other words, in the form of essentially a freemium model where podcast listeners get access for free to a podcast, and then they can pay for additional access. I think Stitcher and Spotify, well, Spotify does that for music, obviously. You get free with ads, paid with no ads. And then, Spotify is moving into the podcast space real heavy. So I imagine they're going to, they acquired Gimlet Media recently, who obviously has an ad-supported model. And one of the things I wonder about is whether they're going to change that. But we'll see. So a couple of the reasons here, they're time-consuming. They're an unreliable source of revenue. I don't know if I completely agree with these. Honestly, I've never been really involved with the production side of ads, so they probably are time-consuming. But the things I wanted to rant on are further down the list. Unreliable source of income. I guess, yeah, to an extent. You're sort of relying on sponsors to feel good about things versus, you're always better off. You're pretty much always better off having a large number of smaller ticket purchases versus a small number of higher ticket purchases. If you have 1,000 people paying you $10 a month, that's better than 10 people paying you $1,000 a month, generally speaking. And particularly if you have 1,000 people paying $10, is definitely better than 2 sponsors paying you whatever the equivalent is. Because if one of them drops off, you're gonna have an issue. So your audience probably doesn't like them. This is something I agree with. I think, there's a couple of podcasts I listen to. I mentioned the Derek Sivers thing earlier on in this show, and he doesn't have any ads on his podcast, and obviously he doesn't need the money. But there's a number of podcasts I listen to where they don't have. Some of the podcasts I'm thinking of that I listen to, and Derek Sivers might be in this category, that don't have ads. They don't have ads, but the podcast host probably has a book that they wrote every once in a while, and then they ask you to buy the book. So it's kind of like an ad, but it's not really an ad. And it allows them to monetize things, I think, in a really effective way, and in a way that the audience probably appreciates more. So yeah, I mean, most of the time, as a podcast listener, I'm fast forwarding ads. Sometimes, I mean, Gimlet does a good job of ads. For example, they do these great native ads that I think are great. So to the extent you can do that, I think that's cool. So freemium and subscription content is already making billions of dollars today, right? So I touched on this, but freemium is just a great model. Spotify, Dropbox, Slack, all these examples. And then he says, based on our work at Double Up, we know podcasters can enjoy similar success with the freemium model for 3 reasons. I haven't looked at this yet. Oh, cool. So this is a service. This is awesome. So this is a service that helps podcasters to okay. So this is a service that helps people do exactly what the article is talking about doing, which is smart. So it generates predictable income. Agree. Has some great charts here. Doesn't distract you from your core product. Agree. Your audience wants you to do it. Like, one of the things I've thought of with some of the stuff I'm involved with is, like, it'd be really cool to have like a membership community for listeners where they pay, maybe $5 a month, maybe $10 a month. And then, like, that would just, now you'd have to spend time managing that community, which is going to take time, but there's probably ways to do that. Anyway, so actually that's interesting. They mentioned Tim Ferriss. I wonder if he's going to, oh yeah, after launching, he explained why he has, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that's something I have to say I agree with. I know, again, I don't want to mention anyone who I think this will be a little awkward for, but if you are watching, you know why this is maybe a little awkward, and I apologize for that. It's just something that I feel. So, not trying to obviously offend anybody. Okay, moving along. There's a tweet from Jordan Gal. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Jordan Gal. A friend and fellow founder here in Portland has a service where you upload a picture of an outfit and they'll find you the items to match within your size and price range. Check it out. So this is brilliant. And I find myself looking at this going, how does this not exist? Or maybe this does exist. I'm not sure if I've seen it before. I feel like maybe I've seen something like this before. Not entirely sure. But it's just so smart. Like, you literally, yeah. So it's so fun to browse fashion on Pinterest and Instagram, but it takes forever, average of 4 hours, to find items to match those outfits that are also in stock, in your size, and in your price range. The price range thing is magic, right? Because I could imagine, uploading this picture of what's her name, this celebrity here, and then they're like, cool, here's the pricing: $400 pants, $700 jacket, and you're like, come on, man, like, help me out here. So the fact you can put in a price range is magical. Absolutely. This is so smart. Like, as somebody who's fashion challenged, but also like would like to try to step up my fashion game a little bit, like the idea of being able to take a picture. Now, what would be even more magical is if they could even buy the stuff for you. I don't know if they actually buy it for you. I'd imagine they probably don't. Maybe they'll get there eventually. This looks like it might be kind of a quick MVP, which I think is really smart. they find the items. So maybe they send you like Amazon links with affiliate links or something like that, which would be a smart way to monetize this. And then eventually, I think you want to give people the option to actually just buy it for them, and then you either get a commission from the place you're buying it from, or you add some margin or something like that. This is so smart. Like, I love this. This is amazing. Another cool integration would be like, if I'm on Instagram and I have an account with these guys, and I could just tag them. Like, if I saw a picture I liked, and I could just tag that, make it. What is this website? Make it. Make it happen. Okay, I'm slow. So I could just tag make it happen on Instagram and say, give me this outfit. And then they could magically set that up, make sure it's in my price range because I already set up my account preferences previously, buy it for me, ship it to me. Like, man, that's amazing. Maybe an approval step, even though you have a price range. I don't know if maybe there's a low end of it or a high end of it, and maybe you want to have an approval step before you actually pull the trigger on it. Or better yet, maybe you could do free refunds, right? Maybe they could just fully pull the trigger on it, send it, ship it to you, and then you can have the option to refund, try it on and refund it if it doesn't fit and stuff like that. So cool. Okay. That is all that I have for you today. I hope that you have an amazing Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow.